Hello my friends and brothers, may grace and peace be with you all. Here we are with the third video, continuing the interview with Pastor Carlos Magno de Miranda, the pastor who was the first to publicly denounce Macedo's hypocrisy and was linked to Jornal Nacional in the 90s. Do you remember nowadays?
Sí.
So, this video was linked and Pastor Carlos Magno became known nationally and internationally. I'm talking to him here. He's talking about several subjects and we're here with him on the phone. Pastor Carlos Magno, as even in the previous video, he was talking about situations of the pastors when they received their salaries. Even one pastor who helped him who was a former banker, he spoke with Macedo. Macedo can let him go and we will hear a little more about it. Hello Pastor, how are you Pastor Carlos?
Hi David, how are you dear? Thanks and peace.
Thanks and peace to the Lord too, it's been very good. I want to thank the Lord for the contribution of being with us here. It is the third video that you are making with us on the Davi Vieira channel. I invite people who are not subscribed to the channel to subscribe to the channel, to leave a like, which are the first videos of 2021. There is nothing better to denounce hypocrisy than talking to the person who first denounced the institution's hypocrisy. You said, Pastor Carlos, with respect to the pastor who wanted to leave, he came to complain to you because he couldn't take it, that he was a former bank employee, and Macedo said he wasn't going to leave to make a comparison of how much he earned to what he earned at Universal. I wanted to ask the following. In that report that you even showed on TV Globo at the time, I remember that you showed an original payroll with the signature of the pastors and a written authorization for the award on the outside, an award that the pastors had at the time of collection. The question I ask you is the following. You who are one of the pioneers, were you one of the pioneers at Universal? Were Universal pastors always commissioned? It's the first question. First question would be, have Universal pastors always been commissioned? How did this monthly award for pastors happen?
Well, Davi, pastors were always salaried, but according to the income of the church he pastored.
Sim.
Even Edir Macedo had a ranking of churches when he gathered the regional leaders, so he took that ranking and said, look, your church is in 10th place, you have to grow. It was supposed to be in 5th. I know what in this ranking has always been used to put pressure on the leaders. Look, if it doesn't grow I'll change, and changing meant the guy going to a smaller one, and going to a smaller one could lose his car, the salary dropped a lot and such. So that made the patrols do real crazy things to increase the offertory, right? The so-called challenges.
Imagina.
But there was never an award, no. What happened was a change. He determined the time. We were in Sao Paulo, in a meeting with him. 2 months he had a meeting with the leaders of the states. And in that meeting he said, look, let's change the pay of the pastors. It will get much better. And pay attention how the guy is an evil genius. I now call him an evil genius. Now the pastor will earn by commission. So, for example, the pastor is at church and wants to top up 15,000, 20,000 reais, for example. Then you see this pastor deserves what? 10%, right? 3,000, 2,000. You're going to do this assessment and pass it on to me, he said, right? Now, I will determine. I will start determining from today. I'll talk to each one in particular. Each one will tell me how much the fundraiser costs. In short, because he did that to me too. The pastor who was a regional pastor, as I was in the beginning in the north and northeast. So he said, how much does the north and northeast collect? It raises 1 million reais per month, for example. Then he stipulated, so you will take 3% of the collection, but it was not from the gross collection, from what he sent to go.
Sim.
Do you understand the diabolical genius of the guy?
I understood.
That then forced the pastor to spend less, not to be renovating the church, not wanting to buy anything.
Exactly.
That the less you spend, the more you earn, right?
Exactly. It's because I was going to ask you too, taking advantage of the opportunity. I don't know if you will remember due to the time, but do you remember how much the salary of a bishop or regional corresponded to in your time? You already said that he did this calculation individually with them, but do you remember more or less how much it was?
Look, Davi, it was in the range. According to the region, the guy from Aluminio de Estala, it was in the range of at least 150,000.
150,000 reais?
1,000 reais, that.
But that's the head of state, you say?
Region leader.
Region leader, already 150,000 reais.
Already 150,000. And before, when there was no commission, when it was salary that they manned, for example, for you, you take 30, you take 40, you take 10, you take 60. When it was like that, you had a car on the church account. You could exchange by car every year. Credit card released, gas released, telephone released. Said it was also a monstrous thing, you know? When he did that, I remember that I went to Fortaleza after the meeting and that moved me and I said, okay, that's a very rotten thing. The guy was already there on commission. Then I don't remember the values that I calculated. But it was a stratospheric value, you know? Then, the next day I called him and started with him on the phone. I don't say that. I was calculating here, looking here, how much do we send to go? A month. Wow, it will give me a stratospheric value. I don't need that. He said, Carlinos, do this. How much do you live on? Can you live on 10,000, 20,000? So you use only the 20,000. And send the secretary to write it down. For example, suppose that in the middle you are going to raise 150,000, but you agree, okay? You say, write down 130,000 there. You have a balance of 130,000 to receive. Because there it goes together. Tomorrow you want to buy a house in Europe. You already have the money.
Olha aí.
Wow.
And I never made that note. I took what I normally took out and I never bothered to write down how much balance I had, how much I didn't have. But when I made the decision to leave, I left with one hand in front and the other behind. On one occasion, going through a lot of trouble, he tried to entice my wife to go out too and leave me alone, because he said that if she did that she wouldn't miss the house, she wouldn't miss the car, she wouldn't miss anything, and that I alone wouldn't. I was going to endure the fight. I was going to surrender. Then my wife said, look, that's it, but we're out of money. I just remember that you had it written down. He never wrote it down, but today if you were to write it down, what value would you give? It would be a fortune, excess, but that's what we're not in church. We left the church and that's it. And left us, right? After in water.
That's right, huh?
He was, even in water. I had to be rescued by friendly people who were going to the market to buy something. And the worst thing is that these people said to each other, that you have nothing, you don't have a house of your own. I say no, I don't believe it. Because the image you give is that you are rich, right? People see you in a big car, leader, that pompous thing, good clothes, good appearance. It gives the idea that you are a millionaire, but no, a millionaire.
In your time, did the leaders of state already walk safely?
Já ou não era o caso?
No. They weren't. At the time, it didn't have that. There was already a bit of care when he made Maracana. But there is a whole security scheme to go out with offers from Maracana into a place that only half a dozen knew about, to be able to count the offer.
Deixa
And it was so.
Hey.
eu...
Hello, sir.
It was so much money that we made a parameter. At the time, the audience of Maracana, Flamengo and Vasco was 180,000 people. They're always the athlete in the stadium announced the audience and income. And when he held a meeting at Maracana, he gave 5 times the value of a classic.
It really is, right? And so, one more question that I'm going to ask you. In fact, One question is linked to another, because you're talking about the episodes of the events. I was going to ask you another question for you to get into the famous episode of Davi, to talk a little about it too, but since you mentioned the issue of the Maracana, in reports, they even showed some documentaries that are even available on YouTube if the person searches. In that first one of the first Maracanas that Macedo made, which there was even, if I'm not mistaken, there was even a dead person, it seems to me, and such, those with the money bags.
Isso.
That, I was there.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you if you were there, because you already said yes. And Macedo today, Universal itself claims that that wasn't money, that was orders mixed with money and stuff.
Mas
But behind the scenes there, after the party ended, what happened? What is the balance of that party? Something that was not disclosed by the media, which the media did not have access to, no reporter had access to. What happened after the party? Or during the party? The party, right? That I'm going to put the word like this, right?
No, the balance is just the financial value, which was a spherical status. I was 5 times the income of a classic at that time at Maracana.
They left there. Where were they taken to count the values?
I don't know why at the time I wasn't part of this closed group. I didn't have access to this information. Only a few people had access to where I was going. There was a whole security scheme, you know. It was a lot of money. Then there were the workers he recruited trust, which had to be a lot of people to tell, right? And that was everywhere. When he went to Fortaleza, when he came to Recife to hold large meetings, he would finish and go to my house. The first thing he would do was clean the table, put it on top, remove the alimony and count. And he only counted the big bills. He only counted the big ones of 100 of 50.
Really, huh?
The pickles are for you to count.
It's easy. Let me tell you, let me ask you about the episode over there. Talking a little about the Daldesk episode, there will certainly be a lot of people from all over Brazil, interested in wanting to know a little about this episode. Can you tell us a little about how that day was? Where was that game? Do you remember?
That was in Salvador, Bahia.
Oh, it was in Bahia.
We were in a hotel, at a leaders meeting. And at that time I was already disgusted, you know?
sim.
You know that feeling you get when you marry a virgin girl, and you love that woman with all your strength, all your heart, and there you go. You find out she was the biggest whore you ever were. Just didn't you know?
I understand.
It was the feeling I had. It started to eat away at me, you know?
Yes.
Exactly this vision that God gave me. And I've always enjoyed filming. I always had a camera where I would take my camera. So much so that there is a video that was also published by the press. They're in New York. When a meeting in a small church ends, everyone is at the back of the church. There was no table. There was nothing yet. Counting the offering on the floor.
Yes, I remember.